Got it.
Hi, Angie.
Hi, Nicole. How are you?
Oh, good to see you. I'm great. Thank you.
This this is super exciting for all.
No, I love talking to you, so I'm so glad we're doing this.
I am too. And I think for my real estate helpfulness, I would
Mm.
love because believe in energy. As you know, I am a true believer that we have energy, people around us have energies, and houses have energies. I am convinced of it. And I know that we, do aesthetic preparing of houses all the time. We want to go in and see and do your traditional staging, but we forget about the energy that's in the house. And I have loved working with you, and I just want to share so others can hear how cool and important this is.
Yeah. Thank you. You just said something really important too, because as you know, I do work with a lot of real estate agents. And one thing that I hear a lot is just that the homes like aren't getting the attention that they should get, or they're not like people are coming in and they're not connecting with their homes, or they're not like what I would say, like seeing the homes, right?
Yes.
And what I then often feel when I go in to do an energy clearing, I call it space clearing, is what I see is that a lot of the agents have done what you just said. They have set up the home beautifully with the staging and the paint and gotten it prepped and ready. But
Yes.
what is the thing that goes on is that I don't feel like it feels like how it looks. Like there's a
Yes.
disc, right? So it's like it looks amazing, but it doesn't feel amazing. It still feels like how it used to feel when someone else was there, or when a lot of someone else's were there.
Like the whole history of the someone else's.
Yeah, the whole history of the home. So it's fascinating because you want to match those two things up in order for the home to really express itself beautifully, and I mean to be in the present moment so that people could connect to it and feel like, oh my god, I could be in this home, I could see myself
It's
there. But
mine.
yeah, because real estate, I mean, people buy homes because they connect to the home. I mean, they feel it in their heart, right?
Oh, absolutely. We hear it all the time where when generally we do the listing side of it, but when we do have buyers and you go in and they'll say, "Oh, we love this was beautiful, that was beautiful." I just didn't feel at home. Like it always comes back to I just didn't feel there's that connection that's missing. And so that's why I'm so happy. I go back to, I'll just share a quick story when we first worked, and we won't name names or houses, but you did a clearing for us and I will never forget. And you can't describe it until you experience it. It was a waterfront several years ago. And remember how the animals came, the seals came, the birds came, the house, like, I've never seen anything like it. It was like a releasing of everything is okay. And I didn't tell you the story of the seller. You knew. You said, "Oh, this is how she had left the house kind of in a quick fashion." And there was an unsettled feeling. I didn't say any of that to you. So I believe that our houses are connected to us.
Yeah, I always refer to them as holographic images
Ooh.
of our experiences, like. And so we have this whole lineage that goes on in our own homes, and it carries that story, right? It carries it through. And so when things like that happen, when I'm relaying to an agent, for example, or whatnot, like here's what I picked up in the home and what came through. I call them downloads.
Okay.
Um, so what I did with you, people are sometimes like, how did you know that? And I'm like, it's right there in the field. Like it just feels so, because it's just like I'm just standing and moving about the home, and it's just like it just feels like a holographic image to me of this information that is in these standing waveforms. It's just so easy for me to read, and I don't call myself a psychic or anything like that. It's just, to me, I'm just like, it's all right there. But and yeah, in that case with that person, that's what needed to be released,
Released.
is that, yeah, because the home, if I'm remembering, I know I'm remembering correctly, but it just had this feeling of like, what happened? Like, where's
Yes.
my owner? Like almost like this panicky, confused feeling to it. And then that's when I started getting the imagery of the seller just whoosh, kind of leaving, quickly.
Quickly.
And
Mhm.
and the home feeling really disoriented by that. And then so that's the information that I'm feeling, I'm sensing, I'm getting the downloads of, and that really needs to come undone, and so that people can walk in and feel, oh my God, and see the home, like really like literally see all the great things. Because when all those images, those holographic images are standing in the way, people don't see the beauty of a home. They don't see the traits and the benefits of it.
Right, the clarity of it. It's like, you see, like, almost like through a film or through a not a full picture of what it is, because that energy is still there so strongly sometimes and blocking that new experience. And with that house, people came, we weren't getting many showings, and it was like just this whole opening that happened with it. So
Mm.
it was, and the reaction inside of the home totally transformed.
Oh, yeah, that's so cool. I love when that
So
happens.
cool. How do you deal with, or how do we, what's the word I'm looking for, like demystify what this is, because this is new to a lot of people. When we talk to people about energy, there's those who are aware of it and maybe step their toes in it and know a little bit about it, and then there are some that truly just don't, haven't even breached this topic of conversation. And I just think it's so important because it's just part of the whole picture of not just in real estate, but how we live our lives. Like there's energy around us constantly. And
Mhm.
how can you help me and others, Nicole, demystify this to say why this is such an important piece of the process?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, isn't
I know.
it? You know, I find when I find that it is like this whole woo woo thing, and I feel like I'm so not woo woo. I mean, yeah, because I
No.
just, like, when I get in and I just start having a conversation with people, everybody can relate to like knowing someone's going to call and then they call, or having a gut feeling about something. I mean, just regular people, like
Yeah, I
say
know.
all the time, like, I just have a gut feeling about that. And so I feel, or I just like, oh, my heart's not in it. Like that's another energy. And to me, that is energy language as well. Like when we're
That's
talking about how our body is relaying with things that we can't see,
right.
or just, I can't, like, I-
Like when you say you
um,
can't put your finger on a something, like I have, when people, I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's there. Yes.
so we actually, like, a lot of people, they actually talk more in those terms than they think they do. And
Hmm.
so I think that for me, it's just broadening that conversation and say, and um introducing people to that concept of like, well, I mean, we're talking specifically about space clearing, but like, well, your space feels a certain way too. And like
Right.
when we think thoughts, we have these like little thought bubbles, and we have these images that come to mind, and those kind of like they express in our environment, and then our home starts to feel a certain way over time, right? And everybody, I don't know anybody that hasn't had a felt sense of like either negative or positive of being in some sort of a space, like whether it's like they were touring in Europe and they were in a really beautiful church and they were like, oh my gosh, that really like blew me away, or they went into, like a really loud restaurant and were really unsettled and couldn't ever really settle in to the with the people around them.
All the happenings.
All the
Yes.
noise. That's energy, you know what I mean? And
Yes.
so I think for people just to start, having a little bit of awareness, like having some language around it, like that they are just, there's two things that come to mind, and one of them is like how are you feeling in a space and in a given time? And then and what are you sensing? And feelings and sensations are different, right? Because
Right.
feelings are like, I feel sad or mad or glad or happy or whatever. But sensations are what we actually pick up on from a visceral level. Like I'm
Yes.
getting tingling, or like I have a headache all of a sudden, or like my legs feel really shaky and weak. And like, why do those spontaneously happen in any given circumstance? Like, it's your body responding to energy and
Yeah.
information.
We just did a recent clearing with you, and I text you afterwards and I said I went into the space, and I'm not kidding you, when I had goosebumps like go through my body, the whole space felt lighter. And again, it's one of those, I can't quite put my finger on it, but when you go in and it was just this overwhelming, oh, and when we were talking earlier about I can see the house now, it was like, oh, I can see this house now.
Yeah.
It was so real.
It happens to me too, Angie. Like when, I mean, that's part of my process. And I mean, on and honestly, so say for example, like, I mean, I'm kind of being a little bit stereotypical here, but say for example, like a couple hires me or whatever, right? And you know, I just have to be honest, like it's usually the female, right? Or whatever,
Yeah,
if it's
yeah.
like, right? And then they're asking me questions at the beginning of it or whatever. And I'm explaining my process and I'm explaining what they might feel. And I mean, you know, I have very obvious reactions to
Yes.
clearing energy. Like I kind of like burp a little bit or a lot, and I eye
Uh-huh.
water and my ears pop and all this kind of things. And it's very obvious when I'm turned like when I'm on in a
Mhm.
space. But the interesting thing is all of a sudden, you know, like I always describe it as being like my work being a Venn diagram, and there's this overlapping, right? And so we're all in these perceived separateness, you know, in the
Yes.
world. Like you over there, you know, Angie, and I'm over here, and my dog's
Right.
over there, right? We're all kind of like there's only really one thing going on, right? But
Yes.
so when I go into a space and I'm explaining these things, and then all of a sudden I swear, it's always the guy who's like, oh, you know, and then like, yes, I know.
Starts
And I
feeling that, yes.
and then he'll like have like a, oh, you know, and then he gets so excited. Like our systems get excited to feel things happening and whatnot. And so when people are in an environment where that process is available to them, and then there's already some sort of distress happening, you know,
Right.
like some kind of like alarm going off that they don't understand, it's really awesome um to have them be having this experience in the moment, like what you were saying when you came back to that home of like, oh, it's like that's you responding
Bling.
to, yeah, to what I call like the reorganization of the energy. Because I had already left, and then you
Yes.
had gone over, close up the place, kind of,
Yes.
and
Uh-huh.
and so it was, and then you'd been there on the front end,
On
right? So
before
your
I
body,
mhm.
yeah, so your body was used to how it had been feeling because you had been in
Yeah.
the property a lot anyway. So when you went in, like your system literally had to like adjust, and then it just
Yeah.
went, it was so cool.
It
I'm so
was
happy.
so cool. And
And
it's just, again, I love doing this because it's, especially when your home is your home and your space becomes your space. And when a seller is transferring their home to the new custodians of the home, there will be that, it's so letting the energy kind of say it's okay, we're going on, we're clearing out and making room for the new people to experience this. And I just think it's so important to allow that to happen.
yeah, I do too. And I really think that I'm so happy to hear you say that, because I feel like when we do move into new spaces, we are inheriting like their memory banks in a way, like their,
Right.
because energy over time accumulates via repetition, right? And we humans tend to um think a lot of the same thoughts, if
Yes.
like whatever our individual thoughts and feelings and beliefs about the world are. And
Right.
so like maybe someone's like a worrier, or maybe someone's like really vigilant, or maybe somebody, whatever their traits are.
There
And so,
is.
yeah, and so our most intimate places on the earth where we spend time are obviously our very own homes, right? Outside
Yes.
of our body. And so, we tend to then, shed, like our bodies need to process our experiences that we have throughout the day. And our environment catch that, like they become like this living, breathing organism by which the home like mirrors who we are, who we think we are, and a lot of who we used to be, right? And
Comes
because
with.
we yeah, because many people evolve and change over time. I mean, and so there's all this information stacked up, right? And so it's not just that something traumatic went on in the home, or something like terrible happened at one point, or there's some disembodied energy or something like that. It's just you're like literally like stepping into somebody else's like whole history and memories, and what and they're like, and on a feeling sense. And it's just so it behooves people to really clear that out. What I call it, like marching your home down the timeline to the here and now,
Love that.
right?
Yes. Yes.
I love it
Do
too
you
because
find, oh, go ahead, sorry.
it's okay.
I'm kind of in the same. So when we have people who, let's say, have been in the home, because I'm thinking of all the different kinds of energies that might be there. And sometimes it's just a really strong, loving energy that was in the home that is so connected to that, where it's like hard for somebody new to get in and feel like it's theirs. And I think kind of because I go in and you can feel, I genuinely feel when you go into homes, oh, this home is feeling like a this or a that, or whatever it is. Like you can just get a sense. And
Yeah, you're
so even if it's a home that it was loving and years of memories and happy times, and that's fabulous. We love all of this, but it's somebody else's. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
that's actually one of the things that blows most people away. I'm like, no matter like whatever the like clear the home no matter what, because people want to feel home in their own homes, right? And I
right.
have literally worked with a lot of properties, and where people have come in and looked at the home and they have fallen in love with the love of the home. Like they
Yes.
fall in love with the love of the home, like meaning like the sellers, right? And
Yes.
then they go off and they start thinking about it. I mean, I had one client who called me because like they got like 3 or 4 legit written offers in a row on this
Mhm.
on the particular home.
Sure.
But then every single one they would back out because the people would leave, and they'd start thinking about it and they'd be like, yeah, but I don't know. Like they would love the home, but they didn't feel like it was really their home. But when they were
Their
in the
home.
home, they were like, oh
Yes,
my
like
God.
visiting.
Yeah, and so when I went into the home, I was like, "Oh my God, I love this home!" Like, and then I was like, "Oh my God, like this home, And he was like, "What's wrong with this home?" And I'm like, and it turned out that the guy was an architect, and he had helped do like the remodel. I mean, they had like
They were
poured
in
love.
the
Yeah,
home. Yes.
every little detail and nuance was them. And so they had taken care of that. I mean, like
Yes.
softened that through staging and whatnot, but it's still, so it was really just like lovingly letting go of, of some of just that like memory bank of information that's just like, and not like, making it go away, but just lifting
Lifting
out.
it.
Yeah. And so, so that it's so again, getting the home to the here and now, to the present moment.
Yes. Oh, I just love this. I was just thinking about, and shoot, and I'll come back to it on that same vein about even if it's a loving energy that was in the home, and I think having the conversation with sellers about exactly what you just said. We're not trying to just make that disappear. We honor that. We love that that's what that is. But for our purposes, we also want to make space for the next. And I think just being able to have a kind and caring conversation around it where it's not a negative thing. We're not telling, because I think sometimes people might feel like, oh, you want to get rid of my energy, where it's like, no, we want to honor it and make room for next. Am I kind of in the right direction?
Yeah, yeah, and kind of it's kind of like thinking about it in the way of like, well, wherever you're headed next to your next home, like you're gonna want it to feel like you know, like you're not,
True.
and
Yes.
and and so and you're gonna want it to be 100% your home. I'm feeling like I'm influencing everything going on here. And honestly, I know it sounds a little crazy, but sometimes people move into homes and they just don't connect with it. Like they love the home and they picked it because it made sense and they did love it and whatever, but they get into it and they feel resistance.
Well, remember we were talking about that at my old home because you came out and visited, and my own personal, and I remember you asking me, you feel safe here. You knew, but you said it's not, there was like a disconnect. And I loved that home. Beautiful. And I never felt at home there. And then I had you come to my new house and you were like, oh, this is totally you here. It was just like that. And it's, I mean, it's just so true.
Yes, yeah, it's really it's a phenomenal thing to witness and to see. Um, and And you're right. It's not about like making them go away or reducing their imprint around, or reducing the importance of what they brought to that. But
Right.
it's about just, just like you would clean the home, but on the energetic level, right? And so I, I always endeavor to find new ways to explain it, but I think people are getting more and more open to it for sure.
I
Yeah.
think so too. And that's why I love having these conversations with you where we can share this and get the information out there, because it's such, well, you've seen it more even than I have. Mine is, but it's, I can't explain it until you experience it, but it is just so real what you are doing. And I love how you explain things.
Oh, thank you. Yes. I've been at this a little bit of time and I just, it's kind of a funny story. But I think I started this work like in around 2000. And and it wasn't until like 5 or 6, like I think it was like 5 years ago, I got invited to a Windermere premiere, like luxury breakfast type event. And
Yes.
I met a bunch of y'alls, and I'm very grateful
Yes.
to you. And there was one real estate agent that started hiring me right away for a lot for clearings, but she would always do, like give me the code and let me go in, like
Yes.
part of her team. But then I felt like, well, I can't just say, and this was really unusual. I'd already been at this a really long time, right? But
Right.
I'd always worked so directly with people. But then she said, but so she would just let me in, and then I was like, well, I can't just say like, well, I cleared the place for you, I hope things go well. Like I just felt like that wasn't helpful for her, right?
Right.
I started writing up reports and I'm like, what am I going to say? Like, there was this much yin and this much yang, and you had electromagnetic energy that was out of balance. Like, all this like dumb language that I use with myself,
But
I
you
mean, like,
know, yes, yeah.
and so I started, but then I was like, well, I can't tell her, like, I had, there was this dude who did blah, 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 like all the
Yeah,
downloads.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
was like, well,
You
maybe
had to
I
find a way.
could. Yeah. I was like, maybe I could just kind of like, but I felt really shy about it, but I just wrote her a report because I really wanted her to get a sense of the value, like I wanted it to feel valuable and helpful to
Yes.
her, right? Because, well, that's a whole other thing. So I'm going to say like, because it helps a lot, but that doesn't always mean that it sells right away. I mean, like the conversation always changes a lot after a home has been cleared and people come in
Sure.
that weren't, that hadn't come in, or they get like a surge of showings or whatnot.
Mhm.
But I wanted to just, like I said, create value. And so I wrote her these notes and a report, and I was astonished. I was like, oh God, I just sent it. I just hit send. She
Yeah.
wrote back, like, how did you know all of that? Oh my God, that is spot on. And so I kept writing her reports, and she like literally helped me sharpen my sword. I mean, and like my experience with clearing spaces went bananas for me. Like it just completely changed it because I was then open to, so I was like looking for, I mean, I was open to to receiving so much more kinds of data and information, so I could
Yes.
translate it in words and in terms that made sense to my realist, I mean, anybody, but
But like
mostly
more
realist.
like I don't like common, like it just, you
Yeah,
pick it up, you read
yeah,
it, and it makes sense. There's, yes.
yeah. Yeah. And she was thrilled. I mean, she was really thrilled and I was thrilled. And then I just kept doing that for a lot. I mean, but then I just kept doing it for myself. Like, what am I picking up here? And getting really, really, um, what's the word for it? Like confident with the people in person too, around, here's what I'm getting. Does this make sense to you? Like, I'm picking up this and that and blah, blah, blah. And here's what I'm feeling, and having that, like being very not shy about it. Just very like, I'm in your
Yep.
environment. You're paying me to be here to have the energy change in your space because there's something going on that isn't necessarily what you want it to. And so here's what here's what's coming up for me, and being
Yes.
responsible to that, like really being responsible to it, and and that's been really that's been great, and using terms that people can really understand. And I mean, not that they can understand, but that aren't like so much energy terms. And
Like a
I don't.
relatable terms of, it's in the same facility of it, but it's more like, oh, it's making, because that's what you always do for me. You use terms where it's like, oh yes, and then I can attach it directly to, yes, that's what that was.
Yes,
Oh,
exactly.
I love it. Can we do this again, Nicole? Because I think that we just barely scratched
Yeah.
the surface here. I feel like that this is really helpful for me, first of all, and then it's also so, it's just another layer of getting your home ready when it's time to go sell, or if you bought a home, to have you come, and if it hasn't been done already, to make this space your space. It's your home.
Yeah, it is. Yes, and let's definitely have another conversation about
Okay.
this.
I'm in. You are fabulous. I am so excited about this, Nicole. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks,
Okay.
Angie.
I'll see you next time. Bye, Nicole.